All right, apologies for interrupting, but just want to welcome everybody to the Bronzeville Neighborhood Roundtable for September. As a reminder, these neighborhood roundtables are monthly gatherings of community stakeholders to discuss important topics and developments along the Bronzeville corridor. This is our agenda for the evening, so we will have a quick announcement, from Sandra Bivens. I don't see her on the line, so we will come back to her, but our main agenda item for this evening is to discuss the Bronzeville RFP and to talk more in depth with the Legacy District and their team. So as you are well aware, we've been meeting over the last year to discuss the Bronzeville RFP, starting with its inception, which started off with community meetings, just like we're having this here tonight, to vision out that process and really getting to details about what the community really wanted to see on that RFP site. So again, that process is started off in September, so just about this time last year, and has continued over the last 12 months with a successful RFP selected development team. And so we will be hearing from that development team again tonight as a part of our continued engagement with the community around this development. So, so we will, for the time being, skip over our announcements because I don't see Sandra on our call right now, who is going to give our announcements. So we will now give it over to Bill Williams and his team, the Legacy District.
Thanks, Kim. So we have a we can have a brief presentation on what we pretty much did with the community roundtable, the community Meet the Developers event. And I'm not sure how many on the call have seen the video. It's kind of a nice synopsis of what we're trying to do, or what we plan to do. And so I don't know if can I share my screen? Oh, you can do it? Okay, so the Legacy District is pretty much a 78,000 square foot mixed use building that will be condos, 25 condos, 5 of which would be affordable. And we have 6 floors, and it's designed by a group of designers. Okay. It's kind of funny because I don't have control over it. It's kind of, it's weird, but anyways. And so it's pretty much the strategy behind the Legacy District is to make this corridor a district, to kind of make an attraction, to use one of Paula's words, to encourage positive loitering and commerce along the corridor, and kind of use this as a impetus or driving force for future development. And so another part of the strategy was to provide ownership opportunities, and we kind of structured around those ownership opportunities with financing partners that will kind of help first-time home buyers with some of the financial hurdles. And we also partner with other financial institutions to kind of help with the small businesses. And so the small business component of it is more food-based, because what we learned, the community wanted more food options and more healthier food options. And so we curated a couple of proven smaller entrepreneurs to kind of kick off the culinary space. And so there's 3 right now, but that can change. This is probably like 1.5 years out, maybe 2 years out. And so we hope to create a system of entrepreneurs coming in, starting a business at a lower cost, and then leaving it out into the community to a bigger space. And so, I don't know how much detail we want to get into, but that's pretty much the Legacy District. So here highlights, some of the housing component, job creation. And, you know, our plan for parking, we kind of do one-to-one parking. And it's also, we wanted to have a space for people to gather from the community. You know, that's what the stairs is kind of like the vertical or the, you know, the front stoop of the city, you know. And so we want to encourage people to gather and to kind of crowd out some of the things that are happening on the corridor right now. And we also, you know, wanted to feed off of other future developments, like the Groshots, you know, the gallery, they bring in a bunch of people. I think the last group, what I've heard, I may be wrong, but it was upwards around 500 people. And so why should those 500 people leave the community after they visit the Groshots? Let's give them a reason to stay and hang around.
Recording.
I don't. So the parking, we have on-site parking. I think I saw a question in the chat. There's on-site parking for 1-to-1 ratio. And then there's other, you know, there's other plans of what we've been exploring on other off-site options for parking. And so, you know, we also studied how people will get in and out of the neighborhood, in which the neighborhood infrastructure now is kind of underutilized. You know, there's the Green Line there, there's 94, there's Lakeshore Drive, and it's not, it hasn't gotten to a point where it's traffic, you know, or parking situation. And in some cases, what we also found is that, you know, some neighborhoods are considered, you know, drive-bys or, you know, fairways, you know, like big arteries. There's no, you know, people don't stop and shop. And so in some cases, this is kind of perfect where people can slow down a bit and visit the new businesses that will be coming to the corridor. So here's some of our partners, which is, you know, the design team, which led by Volume 1 and Civic Projects and Landon Bone Baker. And we're partnered with LG, and then there's also, you know, at Properties, the MB team is Bronzeville based, and they will be kind of leading up the marketing and the sales. And we intentionally wanted to work with MB team because one, they're good and they're from the community, and they kind of know the community best on what will sell and what will drive population growth. So it's kind of the ownership structure here. It's myself, KMW, LG, and that's Brian Goldberg. He's the CEO of LG, and Paula, who's headed up Bronzeville Partners LLC. And the rest of those are kind of our, you know, our consultants and the design team and everyone who's a part of the project. Ooh. Oh, this is a nice image here. So here's all our people right here. And I don't know if you want to, there's nothing in here that's proprietary. We can just share this around with the roundtable for future reference. I don't know, can we do that, Kim?
Yeah, we can do that. So we actually typically will post both the video and the decks to our website. So both will be available.
Yeah, and we want to thank Omni Workshop for hosting the community meeting. They have a beautiful site. They're down on Bronzeville on, I think it's 41st Street, 41st and State.
Hold on, I want to clear that. Yeah. Yes, I do. I didn't have it yet. I picked it up on you. Awesome. I'll do that right now.
So if you want to go back one, Kim, it just shows you kind of how the building is kind of broken up into the food hall, the rooftop garden, the private deck. So there's a lot of amenity space and meeting places for the residents and for the visitors and for the community. And so this building is one of the first amenitized buildings like this that would be in Bronzeville. So it's a fully amenitized building. And also the way it's designed, the top floors will have, you know, pretty much unobstructed views to the north and to the northeast, pretty much. Because there's really no buildings that are this tall, you know, looking in that direction. So there would be a nice views. And so right here, we kind of show how it looks from, this is from a north perspective, looking southwest. And we also wanted to recognize the Great Migration Plaza there, that we didn't, you know, we respect the history there. So we just kind of did a little bit of masking there. And then it pretty much gives you a good view of how the building will be situated and how it kind of meets, or the context of this building in the architectural language. You know, it's kind of modern, but it also respects and blends into the neighborhood a bit. And this slide, it just shows you, we pretty much studied the whole neighborhood or this corridor and saw, you know, the great potential of future development and how this building could actually be the center, and then the rest was spread out up and down 47th Street and into the neighborhood. And so, you know, there's a lot of potential for even more development that we didn't include. To the north, there's you know, a few other city-owned parcels that we hope that other developers or we can help, you know, help shape and continue to grow this part of Bronzeville.
Bill, may I add one comment to that? Is that one of the opportunities this presents is this isn't a set in stone plan, but we just, to Bill's point, we want to talk about the growth and the opportunities that this building presents. So just reinforcing that, because I know DPD is working with others to develop some of these sites, which will be really exciting.
Thanks, Monica. And so I don't know, Monica, if you know, this looks like, you know, your area of expertise, and you probably could speak to it more eloquently and more scientifically than I can. I could regurgitate it, but I think it'd come much better from you.
Thank you. So I think the idea, just what we wanted to do with this project is really both recognize the street, the fact that this is a commercial corridor, but also kind of welcome in the public. So what you can see is just a massing of kind of what it would look like to fill the block. And then what happens when you start to open that corner, both to across the street to adjacent businesses and to flow both out from the building into the building and down the street. I think you can go to the next. And then sort of how that public space and welcoming space can extend up to a rooftop garden that'll have, it's a semi-public rooftop farm with the idea of microgreens and other plantings could be used by the restaurants there. And this could be a shared space. And then what you're seeing in the public spaces, the red to the right, is this idea of enhancing the public spaces. So not only are we activating the street, but these are also potential areas for some of the community activation, partnerships with Dorian Sylvian for some of the artist engagement, but all sorts of the legacy of the area and the culture of the area is something that we want to really bring to the forefront as part of the project. And then I think you can skip to the next slide. And then sort of the art beacon, this highlight moment, and then to Bill's point, some of the views that he was talking about, but with elevating this building and having the density of the building, you start having views to both the north and the northeast. And I think it's going back to you next. So this is just the render.
Yeah, it's just a render of how, you know, people may interact with the space. And we also set the building back a bit to kind of widen that sidewalk to encourage the pedestrian, you know, experience, or to make that pedestrian experience better. Because we also studied, like, you know, other areas in the city, like on 53rd Street, in some areas they have 12-foot sidewalks where they can put tables out and people can enjoy weather and outdoor space. And then also, you know, even on the north side, in some case on Division Street, the sidewalks are, I think, 16 feet. And so it just makes it a whole different feel, and it encouraged people to walk up and down the street. So that's why we kind of set the building back a bit. And that's what you see here. And along that retail, it kind of be like kind of a retail strip set back. And then we haven't, you know, finalized the design yet, but in my mind, those doors are kind of like accordion doors where where the indoor and outdoor meet. You can't tell, you know. And so that's how we kind of envision some of these doors opening along 47th Street. It's just another perspective from across the street. You know, another way to see how people interact with the space. And this is you know, the one of the incubator spaces, or how it can potentially look. And also with a fresh market there. And that fresh market would be, you know, could be fed by, you know, rooftop garden. So, you know, it's basically garden to table, you know, right there. And the next slide is pretty exciting. See, this is the actual view from the roof space looking north. And, you know, this would be amazing people how they can enjoy the space and, you know, take food or whatever from downstairs, upstairs, and have this whole new experience. You notice this is a summertime shot. I don't know what it's going to be like in the winter. And so someone asked about parking. We kind of did a 1-to-1 ratio here. And I think it's actually more. I don't quite remember. But there is parking on site. And I think the other slides are pretty much the typical floor plans. And this is how, this is floor, I can't really see that, kind of small, but it's a typical floor plan. And I think this also has some of the restaurant layout.
And this is where the YWCA Incubator Entrepreneurship Program could lie on the second floor. So that's another incubator growth opportunity where businesses could thrive in this space, learn in this space, and then take up permanent office spaces throughout the community.
This may be the last slide for floor plans. Monica, did you want to talk about this third floor plan?
So this, to Bill's point, is the more sort of traditional. So one of the things that we really want to highlight and have heard a lot about is families and supporting growth. So the majority of the units are 3-bedroom units. There are also 2- and 1-bedroom units to allow for diversity, but the majority are 3-bedroom kind of family focused units. And that's what you can see in this layout is several of those units. Again, it may be long-term a little bit easier to see this in the handout that it's distributed, but that's what you're seeing on this plan.
So I think that may be the end of you guys' presentation. So thank you again. We're talking through some of the aspects of the project in greater detail. Again, we want to allow the community to speak and ask questions, provide feedback on any of the anything that they heard this evening. And so we did get some questions from our first in-person meeting 2 weeks ago, and we can kind of start there and then take questions from the floor as they come. But I just wanted to kind of kick things off. We talked a little bit about parking, transportation already. But someone asked last week, kind of what is the plans for parking, transportation, and do you think the current infrastructure can support the increase of density that this development will bring?
I think the answer is yes, we will be providing parking for the units. And as we talked about during the in-person meeting, the current infrastructure is pretty much underutilized. And so I think what's there now, it will be fine. We can do more studies as we get closer, but right now the infrastructure is there. And then you want to encourage more walking. You want to encourage, people to use the transit. Because ideally you want this neighborhood to be a 20-minute neighborhood, a 20-minute city or a 15-minute city where you can not be in your car and walk to all the services that you need.
Well, yeah, I'm sorry, that would be a request.
And I also think there are some things that are being, studied with, besides our team in terms of other parking sites. So I think the city is looking at that for the future.
Jurisdiction
Yes, thank you for that. So we had another question in the chat that asked, can we speak more on the purpose of the method of redensification, which I think by that means kind of what are the benefits of making this corridor more dense? You can.
Well, there's been lots of studies on that, economic studies from universities of how and urban planners of how density sustains a neighborhood and how density, the benefits of density is you create an ecosystem. And if you create density of all different incomes, it can be very dynamic of the type of services that the neighborhoods would attract. So density in some areas that have experienced loss of density is a good thing. And density is also one of the drivers of the tax basis and the services that the city can provide. And density also is one of the reasons why some schools are underperforming and closed. And so without density, a neighborhood can't thrive for the long term. For example, I was doing some research in West Humboldt Park, and over the last 20 years, this part of West Humboldt Park lost 20%, 30% of its population. And the result of that is most of the stores are shuttered. There's about 3 closed schools, and it's all because of density. I'm familiar with this neighborhood because I have family over there in the 80s and 90s, and the incomes were low, but the area was packed, and there was there were so many options for shopping and services, although the community was a lower income community, but it was packed and there was not a closed store. So it was an ecosystem there. It was pretty much a 20-minute city right there. And so density is always good and in terms of a growing community or a community that wants to be stable.
I just wanted to add to that as well. In terms of just the retail that we've all been wanting to attract, they certainly are looking for the density and population and numbers, but also in what we're just talking about with the diversity of income. And, I like to talk about that historically was what was a part of Bronzeville's sustainability or part of its legacy that, today we're now talking about, who are essential workers. So we really understand this ecosystem now just through COVID that the working families, essential workers, as well as what we're talking about with these different income levels are what really make a community dynamic and has a lot to do with who we want to attract in terms of diversity of retail. That diversity of retail is looking for that diversity of income as well as density. So, they all go hand in hand. And I'm glad that we are having, particularly with this roundtable, this type of discussion, because I think that we have to be ambassadors for that. The alderman has certainly put this challenge on the table to say, we've got affordable housing on both ends of 47th Street. We want to bring in market rate. This is still a challenge, but this roundtable is we've got to keep massaging this conversation. And so, others who have access to some of these studies and things in different neighborhoods, but also around the country, this is what's happening now as we're talking about wealth building. So this project is going to be looked at very closely as it relates to wealth building strategies. And the second part of what this project is, which is, almost acting again as like a hub for entrepreneur and that type of incubation. But I'll stop there. I think that that's reflected in our collaboration with YWCA and DePaul, and several other businesses that are ready to scale and do more. But let's be in dialogue about these strategies.
Thanks for that, Paula. So Marcus had a couple other questions about density, but I believe she answered your question, Marcus. So if not, feel free to drop a follow-up in the chat. But just wanted to keep the conversation moving with some more feedback and questions that we got from our initial meeting. And again, if any of the panelists have questions or the attendees have questions, feel free to raise your hand to ask those and or put them in the Q&A box so that we can answer those live. So you talked a little bit about some of your collaborations, Paula. Can you speak more to those collaborations and some of the other community benefits that you see this development having?
Well, I was talking about the collaboration with DePaul University in particular. It's another example. We've all been working. He talked about a lot of these university studies and things like that. And I'm not trying to say that this project is an experiment. This project is one that everybody on this committee recognizes that we absolutely are in need and ready for a different level of lifestyle destinations, et cetera. In terms of us talking about, well, are you just bringing people in to do that? Or are you also creating wealth building strategies with the neighborhood to do it? Then we start to, really need to focus in on how we're bringing things beyond just entrepreneurial training to creating entrepreneurial, spaces, retail, and designing intentionally to set up that way. So when DePaul University was saying, we really see this void with women in particular in the African American community, we'd love to, bring this women's entrepreneurial center. We've been having great success with these strategies around the city. We'd love to bring it to Bronzeville. We're saying we'd love for you to come. So that is another aspect of something that I think, with DePaul and the YWCA, that now when these strategies actually hit the street, these are the things that we need to probably start focusing even more on from subcommittee level. My partner, Bruce Montgomery, has been very involved in this entrepreneurial training, working with a lot of these providers in the community that already exist. But that's, to me, how we ensure success. So that's, one example is the entrepreneurship. But the question is, Invest Southwest is about wealth building strategies. That's why this project and these corridors are being looked at around the country.
Great, thank you for that, Paula. So another question that we have in the chat is, can you speak to your art partnerships and plans and kind of how art is integrated within this development?
Well, I can lead off. We're excited that two things happened, and that is that we saw this project as a district. And we already have two anchors in terms of what we call cultural economic development. So not just the arts, but really cultural economic development, and that being the Harold Washington Theater, 1,000-seat theater, Gateway that was already put in. In terms of that type of placemaking and culture, we're planning on bringing a major signature art piece as well, working with Dorian Sullivan. And then obviously what has been going on, not only at Gallery Gishard and the Migration Garden and the gallery itself, but just the whole, as he referenced, the art trolley tours. The art trolley tours demonstrates that there is this destination retail development buying, even being, what our slippage that we're saying is there is placemaking where some of the purchase power is happening online and continued through COVID. It was just a big write-up about Gallery Gishard and, this whole exhibit catalog that's now, being housed with major institutions. So we, as always, found these solutions through COVID and remote, even when people couldn't go and shop. So I just think that we have two anchors just within this block. And so the expansion of saying, hey, if people are coming and going to art galleries, we're talking about bringing another gallery into this space as well. I used to be in the antique business, and being able to go, if I was going to have destination antiquing, if I could go from one store and cross over and do another, I stayed longer, had lunch, all that we're talking about, keeping that dollar in the community. And art and culture is definitely that attraction. And so art has already been incubated, not only through the gallery and the garden and the tour, but everyone that's in the artist loft are artists, designers. We've seen many of them who have their own galleries within that space. So that incubation of art and cultural economic development has already been established. And now with the city saying, we see the vision of let's fill this block, let's fill the missing teeth in the block. I think that the announcement of, both with the other group taking those two spaces that the city owned across the street allows us to demonstrate that there will be that density within this block, and then we can move on to the next block. That's how we think of it. I think we need to sort of, level set and make sure that the community is seeing this as viable strategies for what is quote unquote, wealth building, or these terms that we're hearing now about racial equity. But if this group is not seeing it this way, this is safe space for us to talk and sort of course correct, because we end up being the ambassadors for the rest of the community when they're saying, why did they do it this way? They don't get it. You missed the point. This is what should have been done. So, we really took on what was set up in the RFP.
I think to build on that, Kimberly, I'm going to answer one of the other questions in the chat. So there's a couple questions coming up about the entrepreneurial support. Because we're talking about arts programming right now, I know one of the questions is if that's the focus. And I'm going to add to the chat in a second. The YWCA has a entrepreneurship program that they are bringing to Bronzeville, and it would be housed within the Invest Southwest project. So the chat just got put in, but the focus is Black women entrepreneurs running through programs and growth. It's one of the most underserved business community, and I think it's growing at a rate of about 322%. So that is currently the conversations we've been in with YWCA in terms of sample of the kind of program that would come on board. And the idea is to really focus on entrepreneurship that can learn, grow, and build within the community and expand throughout Bronzeville.
Okay, thank you for that, Monica, and I hope that answered your question. Marcus, if not, again, feel free to drop a follow-up in the chat. Moving on to other questions and feedback that we got from our initial community meeting. People wanted to know more about the home ownership aspect of this development. So you talked a lot about this being a catalyst for community wealth building, but can you talk specifically about the home ownership aspects? Will there be any down payment assistance programs for the condos? And is there anything specifically geared towards first-time home buyers?
I think I can speak to that. And Brian, if you get your link working, you can feel free to jump in. So we partner with CIBC, who wants to participate in the neighborhood, and they've also demonstrated that by building a branch. I think it's on 39th Street or something like that, or right in Bronzeville too. And so they have structure, or I don't know if it's fluid, or the funding is fluid, or if it's needs to be refunded, not refunded, but replenished, but identify some sources for first-time home buyers through the state. And then also they have a first-time home buyer program. And as I said before, there's 5 affordable units that will probably be geared towards some first-time home buyers that are trying to get into the market.
That's correct. And sorry, Bill, I was having a little trouble. This is Brian connecting. But yeah, it's all available online too on their website, but they have a huge presence on the south side, and they have several different programs. Some of them are related to, lesser credit approvals, higher leverage, and as well as assistance on their down payment for the home. So, it's obviously treated on an individual basis because they still are a bank, but, we found them to be just absolutely blowing everybody else away, especially with this type of product in this neighborhood. And they really have an interest in taking care of people. And also, they're providing the loan for this project, so they have every incentive to get these buyers through the door and get them financed as well, obviously.
Great, thank you for that, Brian and Bill. So next question is sticking in with the discussion about the home ownership aspects of this development. Question again from the community meeting earlier is kind of what are the expected sales prices for the housing that you'll be providing? And I see a similar question just came in the chat. So people just interested in the price range for the condos.
I can help answer that. Apologies, I'm just pulling up the correct tab. So essentially, we have 1, 2, and 3 bedroom units. And as Monica mentioned, most of them are 3 bedrooms. The largest units are about 1,800 square feet. Those are projected to sell for around $420,000. The smallest I'm seeing of the market rate is about 900 square foot 1 bedroom, projected about $225,000. On the average, we're showing about $230 per square foot for the market rate units to be sold. And then the affordable units are more around the $190, $195 per square foot range. We've got 5 units there. We've got a 1,300 square foot 2-bed, 2-bath for about $270,000, 1,500 square foot 3-bedroom, 3-bath for $309,000, 1,300 square foot 2-bed for $271,000, 1,500 square foot 3-bed for $309,000, and another 1,500 square foot for $309,000. So, it will range, but those are the approximate figures. And, obviously it's not an exact science. The city has to dictate to us what these affordable units will sell for and what AMI they're going to be tied to. So that's kind of out of our hands. It's just something that we go through with the city, and they tell us what they want to see. And then the market, we try to sell for what the market will pay. And the numbers we have here is based on the MB team at Properties, who has done the majority of the volume in Bronzeville and has a really good handle on, what's happened in the last 12 to 24 months. So we're trying to capture as much of the market data as we can and make the best projections that we can. But at the end of the day, it's still an educated guess, so to speak.
Great, thanks. So another question. You guys showed us a lot of outdoor space, outdoor landscaping, in a kind of pedestrian friendly environment. So one of the questions of concern was about maintenance of those spaces. So if you could just talk a little bit about kind of maintenance of the development, the outdoor landscaping in the rooftop gardening, and just add just how much of that outdoor amenity space will be provided as well.
I could do that. And sorry, I was having trouble with my computer here, but the outdoor amenity space, if we go back to the plan, it's pretty straightforward. This building will be managed by a condo association, and that association will likely hire a management company to manage the property. And that'll include interior common areas and, the exterior common areas. So that stair outside the retail space and that kind of ground level patio. They will also handle things like trash removal, snow removal, landscaping, general cleaning, things like that, and insurance, of course. So we expect that, once this condo association does take over, that there will be a lot of pride of ownership. These are homeowners, not renters. And we'd expect that they would, really put their hearts and their time and energy into making and keeping this building a great asset for them, because as we're doing, we're talking about wealth building. If they maintain the building well, they're going to see a profit on their units over the coming years, as real estate does tend to appreciate over time. And we're very excited about being able to provide that for the market.
Thanks for that, Brian. So another question that we had is about the interior spaces being open to the community. So will you have, I guess, community open spaces, and then will there be spaces for private events and meetings?
Yeah, I mean, that outdoor patio is pretty substantial. And, as a placeholder, we're just showing some seating there. We're assuming that our operator of the 2-story retail space, that restaurant, is going to be using that for seating. We also anticipate that, they will welcome community events, whether they're free or paid events. I'm sure, we're kind of hoping that the community will engage there and throw their parties and birthday parties and whatnot there, and office parties and whatnot. But also, we've got that office space there for the YWCA. So we're also anticipating that there'll be some community engagement and some, meeting space there that will be used hopefully on a very active basis.
Okay, so we have another question from the chat. So if Renee, Skeet, if you want to unmute yourself and ask your question. Renee.
Hi, y'all. Hey, Kim. Sorry, I accidentally
no
raised
problem.
my hand. I actually did not have a question. I was just listening.
Okay, no problem. We know that happens sometimes, but it's okay. So again, if any attendees have any comments, questions, feedback, feel free to drop them either in the chat if you're a panelist, or in the Q&A box if you are an attendee.
I think one of the things that we're seeing starting up in the chat, Kimberly, to some of the questions, is that there is a really robust network of community partners that are working with entrepreneurs and working to build entrepreneurship throughout Bronzeville. And frankly, I think you can never have enough. So I think it's really exciting to also see, you'll see that QCDC and 51st Street Business Association, among many, several others, are providing services that also serve the neighborhood and the community. So thank you for adding those into the chat.
Thank you for that, Monica. I see we have another question from one of our panelists. So Mr. Phil Beckham, if you would like to unmute and ask your question.
Sure, thank you. It's a great project. I love it. Just wanted to know if you had any general construction costs yet?
That's something we're working from. We initially just had a schematic budget and we worked, some of the info from the city RFP. So the actual construction cost is going to take some time once we, get this going and, get formal approval from the city with the zoning and everything else. Then we design it, then we go out and actually bid it. So we won't really have finite construction costs for probably, 6 to 8 months or so. But we'll be obviously very open book with all that when the time comes and as things progress.
Thanks for that question, Phil, and that answer, Brian. We have a lot of activity in the chat. It looks like most of them are comments. Again, to Monica's earlier point, just about some of the resources that are already in the community that the development team will be looking to kind of partner, incorporate within their development. I do have a couple other questions from our earlier community meeting that I want to touch on. One being just overall timeline for development and when is the anticipated groundbreaking?
That's a really good question. We'd love to just start tomorrow, but the process with the city is, there's multiple steps that need to occur. So, maybe Kim can help me with that answer a little bit too, but,
we'll talk a little bit about that later.
I'd estimate somewhere between, 10 to 12 months is, and Kim, you can correct me if that's a little crazy, but I would kind of think that that's a reasonable timeline to be ready to put a shovel in the ground from now.
Yeah, I think that's, pretty reasonable. And like, we're going through that process now to really finalize what that timeline looks like. Like I said, a little later on, I'll talk through next steps as far as the city is concerned. So we'll get to that shortly. Any other questions from either our panelists from our roundtable or attendees? Okay. Seeing none, we would like to thank our development team for coming out this evening to explain their project to us. We're really excited to see this move forward. As you all know, we've been at this for about a year now, starting with the development of the RFP. So it's exciting just to be at a place where we see things happening. And so the city is fully supportive of this project moving forward and kind of full steam ahead from here. So as I said, we will go, if there's no other questions.
Hey, Kim, Phil Beckham has his hand up.
Oh, Phil, did you have another question?
No, I don't have my hand up. Let me put it down. I'm sorry.
No problem. So that was an earlier
Yeah.
hand. No problem. All righty.
So not to steal your steam, but are you going to make an announcement, Kim?
Yeah, so I have a couple more slides. Just talking about next steps. But then we do have Sandra Bivens, who wanted to talk about a B2B grant opportunity for small businesses, and then we'll wrap it up after that. So just a couple more minutes and then we'll be getting you guys out of here. So you guys are very familiar with this timeline as we've shared this kind of from the beginning, starting last September when we developed and released the RFP in November. Just really wanted to highlight hear how the city has been very intentional about incorporating the community in every step of this process, and we don't plan to cease. We really want to get you guys' feedback on not only what it took to develop the RFP, but what it's going to really take to see this project come to fruition. So a little bit about our timeline, and we spoke a little bit about it earlier, but I just wanted to bring out some of the things that will be required from the city's perspectives as we move this forward. So at this point right now, we are going through the project to make sure it aligns with all the zoning requirements, also providing a design review, financial feasibility, and environmental review of the proposed project. And then next step kind of being to look at the financing in more detail. So highlighting whether or not what other city resources are needed. So whether that be TIF, LIHTC, NOF, really nailing down that capital financial stack and providing the resources that this project will need to move forward. And as we begin to finalize those things, next steps would be to put this project through to legislative approvals, that being Plan Commission, CDC, which is the Community Development Commission, and then City Council. And from there, that would be, the day we all be waiting for, which is the gritting those permits and the groundbreaking and the beginning of construction. So again, we anticipate there being continued community engagement, both at this roundtable and through other public meetings. Other public meetings prior to legislative approval, so whether that be in the roundtable format or through meetings that the developer would host themselves, we anticipate having community engagement throughout this process. So this is not, again, I say this, not the only time, not the last time you get to provide feedback to the development team. There will be plenty of opportunities to do that in the months ahead. So any questions on this project timeline? So if not, I'll actually go back a little bit and well, I will announce that our next roundtable is Wednesday, September 27th. We typically host these the last Wednesday of each month. And so information will be sent out approximately 2 weeks prior to that roundtable being set. And then you'll get notification again when that roundtable meeting is scheduled. Actually go back to Miss Sandra Bivens from the 51st Street Business Association, who had an announcement about a small business grant program that is coming up. And I'm sorry, that is an error on my part. That is meant to say October 27th, since clearly September 27th is already passed. Yeah, so go ahead, Sandra.
Okay, I'm only going to take a few minutes because I know everybody got 1,000 things to do, but I did just want to say that the state of Illinois has a $250 million grant program called Back to Business. The program is specifically for businesses that were affected by COVID-19 during 2019 and 2020. Now, the deadline date is October 13th, so we don't have long if you all have not already applied. It's such a simple application. They just want to see your 2019, your 2020 tax statements. You have to send them that. They just want one bank statement from between April and December in 2020. And they just want your most recent bank statement and your ID. That's it. And then you end up in a group. Once you apply, they got groups from 1 to 30, and it all depends on their review and the financial situation as to what group and that you will be in, as well as what community you live in, because those most low-income communities are usually going to be at the high end of the grid for them, because many businesses didn't get any money when a lot of that money was coming out of the federal government. So I just want to say that you really need to go after this money. Your small business, you can use it. They're giving from $5,000 to $150,000. Depending on your loss, they will determine how much they will give you. But that is definitely what they are willing to give out as a grant. So you do not have to pay this back at all, okay? So you can always contact me at the 51st Street Business Association. I think I put that in the chat already, at yahoo.com. Or I'll also drop my number in there, 773-285-3401. But you can, it's a set appointment, but you can also contact QCDC, because we're working together so that we can get as many Bronzeville businesses as we possibly can signing up for this project and this program. So if you have any questions, just ask me, but I will drop my phone number in the chat for you as well.
Thank you so much for that, Sandra. We know we do have a lot of small business owners on the call, and you at 51st Street, along with our many community partners, provide those vital resources and assistance to those small business owners. So we really appreciate you coming and providing that information. Again, Sandra provided her contact info in the chat should you have any additional questions. Her, along with Yvette and Rhonda from QCDC, have provided their information should you have additional questions on that particular grant program. So I do want to allow just some space. It is a little after 5, but just to see if we have any other questions, comments. I do see some conversation going on in the chat, so I appreciate Yvette being attentive to those as they are pertaining to a lot of small business questions. And I see she's fielding those, so appreciate that, Yvette. But if there are no other questions for me, just want to stop here. And as Lisa stated earlier, did have a little announcement. I see people's faces. So this, I'll just go out and say it. There's no easy way to say this, but this will be my last Bronzeville Neighborhood Roundtable that I will be hosting, as I am leaving the Department of Planning and Development. I truly have to thank the residents of Bronzeville. As some of you know, I really got my start in this community and economic development space in Bronzeville, working with Sandra, working with Leanna Flowers, working with QCDC. So I, got my legs in Bronzeville, and so that's why when I got the opportunity to work for the city of Chicago on the Best Southwest Initiative, I knew what neighborhood I wanted to focus on. It was Bronzeville. Just because it holds such a special place in my heart. And I knew the potential for Bronzeville, and I always just wanted to see it grow and thrive and just be a part of the development that's happening here. So this platform really gave me that opportunity. And I'm just truly grateful for everybody here. Everybody who's literally been here on these calls participating for the last year. Thank you for sticking with us. Thank you for your dialogue, for your participation, your conversation. Thank you for pushing me, really. Thank you for forcing those hard conversations sometimes that, that we have to have. Thank you for really bringing forth the issues that the city may have had a blind side to. All of those comments, questions, complaints have really been viable to the development of this process. And it has really pushed me to a place where, I'm trying to produce kind of the best product possible for this community. Because like I said, it really is near and dear to my heart. So I just want to thank everybody again. Thank you everybody on this call. Thank you to our aldermen who are not on the call, but I see their staff are present. Thank you for their leadership. Thank you for their support. Thank you for their guidance. To my team, I see Patrick and Lisa are here as well, who are always there to back me up, back me up in the chat. Thank you to them as well. For our assistant commissioners, our deputy commissioners who support me as well, who are not on the call. Want to give them thanks as well. And thank you.
Jim's
again
here. Jim's here.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see you, Jim.
Yeah, I'm here impersonating Patrick Brutus. If you look
Oh,
at my
got
name,
it. Okay, want to give a major shout out to Jim, who has always been here to support as well. And just want to say again, even though I am leaving this position, I will not be far. You will see me again soon, doing the work that I love, which is, really bringing resources to communities that deserve it and have long been left out. So I will be gone out of this position, but I will be very near and close by, so you won't see the last of me. So just want to end it there. Thank you everybody for participating. And that's all I have for today.
Thank you, Kim.
So yes, Kim, it's truly been a pleasure. We're gonna miss you. We're gonna miss you. Boy, are we gonna miss you. But everybody on the roundtable, stay tuned. You will have an invite for our next monthly roundtable. We will still keep and try to fill Kim's shoes and live up to the standards she has set and continue on with the consistent roundtable. So please look out for a invite soon for the next roundtable. Have a good evening.
Thank you, Kim. Congrats.
thank you, Kim. Great job. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Congrats, Kim. Congrats.